everybody. Today we're going to be going through how to make your very own adorable, squishy little octopus here. This pattern is by Sweet Softies, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a visual run through. I love this yarn. It's super soft and squishy, but it is not the easiest to see what we're doing with the stitches. So for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to use some regular worsted weight yarn, and difference will be come out quite a bit smaller, but still super, super cute. So we have the whole pattern here, and I'm going to walk you through step by step. We have all of the terms and abbreviations right here. So if you ever get lost trying to translate the pattern, if you're not familiar with it, feel free to go back and use that little glossary section. What we're going to need for this pattern, I am using a 6mm hook. You can go up a size or two if you're using the thick yarn, but for the thinner yarn, I am going to use the smaller hook. We will want a pair of safety eyes and backers, scissors to cut our yarn, and a little bit of fiber fill stuffing. All right, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try and keep the pattern on the screen here so you can see what we're doing, at least for the most part. Some of it does have a little bit longer text, but we'll get there later on. So the first thing we want to do when we're starting is we want to go ahead and make a slip stitch on our chain. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to make a quick knot. We're going to do a little bit of a crossover here, put a loop through, and then tighten it. All right, so then we can just pull our yarn like this, so that we have a starting point on our hook here with the yarn. So the very first round is going to call for us to go ahead and chain 2. So to chain, all we're going to do is we take our hook, and you can see I have my yarn going over my finger here, and that just kind of helps me hold it. I've got the hook right here between my fingers. So I'm just going to take the hook, and it's called yarning over. Just sort of twist it with the yarn on top. The yarn is going to go over the top, and then we pull it through a loop. And you can see we have made one chain. This little V here, this loop, that is a chain. So we've made one. We're going to do one more. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our hook, we're going to yarn over, we're going to grab that yarn and pull it with the hook through that loop. So we now have 2 chains. We've got 1 and 2. All right. And what we want to do to start is in the second chain from the hook, we're going to do 8 regular crochet stitches. So we've got, this is our first chain from the hook right here. And then you can see we have our second chain is that second spot right there. So we are going to go ahead, and again, I am just keeping this chain kind of, I'm holding it in a pinch with my thumb and my middle finger, and the yarn is just kind of going over the top of my index finger to help me kind of hold everything. So to make the stitch, we're going to insert the hook into the chain. We're going to yarn over just like we were doing with the chain stitch and pull through. And you can see now we have 2 loops on our hook. We've got 1, 2 loops there. And so to finish our stitch, we want to yarn over again and pull through both loops. And that is a single crochet. It's your basic single stitch. And we want 8 of those in this one space. So we want to make 7 more. So go ahead, we're going to insert right back into the same spot, yarn over, pull through. We've got our 2 loops on the hook there. We'll yarn over again and pull through. So you can see here are our stitches. Each V, if you can see that, each V is one stitch. So we've got 1 and 2. So to make our third stitch, again, insert right in the same spot. We are going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, and pull through both of those loops. 1, 2. So that is 3 stitches, 4, yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, and pull through. So each single crochet has 2 steps. We want to yarn over twice. We got our first one that makes our 2 loops on here, and then once more to complete the stitch, where we pull that yarn through both of those loops. Okay, so where are we at here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. Go back through, yarn over again for 6. Seven, and 8. All right, so that's going to be the very top of our octopus. You can see there's a small hole here. You can try giving your tail thread a pull to tighten that up. And if that doesn't work, we can always just do a little sewing after the fact to cinch that up nice and tight. And something I didn't do, but I should have, is cut a little bit of yarn to help mark our spot. So because we are going to be working in a circle, we need a way to tell when a row is starting, well, a round is starting, and when it ends. So I like to use just a little piece of yarn, and I lay it just right in there like that. And that lets me know that this is going to be my first stitch, and that once I hit that again, going around that circle, that it is the end of that round. So the next part of our pattern is to round 2. It wants us to increase all around. And so that means we are going to put 2 stitches, 2 single crochets in each of the crochet stitches for this circle that we already have. So each one of the stitches from the round that we just finished is now going to have 2 stitches go into it. So we are going to double the amount of stitches that we have total. So again, I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook, and I want to insert it right underneath these threads right here, underneath those threads that are making that V. I want to make sure that my hook gets through both of them, and that we're not just going through one. So we'll yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, and pull through. And then right back in the same hole that we just did, we're going to insert again for our second stitch of our increase. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through. Okay, and again, I'm not sure if it's the easiest to see with this color, but each stitch has a V here. You can see these nice little V's, and we want to make sure that we're going through both of those bits of yarn when we're doing a stitch. So insert through, and you can see I've got both of my hook or yarn loops on there. Yarn over, pull through. We have our nice 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through again. And we want our second stitch for our increase. So we'll do one more single crochet in that same stitch. And there we've done 2 increase stitches. So we will want to keep going all the way around, doing our nice single crochets here. So that's my third increase. There's 1, 2 for the fourth. 5. And if you're ever going through this video and I am going a little bit too fast, feel free to pause it. You don't have to keep up. You can go at your own speed and just pause as you need to, rewind, all of that good stuff. All right, so here we are finishing up the last of our increase, and you can see we know we're at the end because I have reached where my little yarn piece is. So I know that this is the last stitch here. And if you're ever in doubt, you can always count. Remember, each stitch is a little V. So if we're going, we can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 here, which is the number of stitches our pattern says we should have. So we are right on track. Okay, so I want to go ahead and I'm just going to slide that little fabric marker out and put it right in before I make a stitch. And so now we're in round 3. We just did round 2 with our increases. And round 3 wants us to do a single crochet and then an increase in the next stitch. And we're going to go ahead and repeat that around all the way to the end of our round, to the end of this circle. So we'll just do our single crochet in this stitch, insert it, yarn over, pull through. We've got those 2 loops, yarn over again and pull through, and there we have our first single crochet. So now in the next stitch we'll want to do an increase, so that, remember, is 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So here's our first single crochet. We'll insert right back into the very same hole, and there is our second single crochet. And then our next stitch, remember we are alternating, so this one we just want 1 single crochet and then we're done. So now we want to do the increase, so we will do those 2, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both those loops for a single crochet, and we're increasing, so we want 1 more. There we go. And then again, this stitch will get 1 single crochet. And then our next one we will increase. Got 1 and 2 for the increase. And this one will be our single by itself. Got 1. And then our next one is our increase. So we got 1 and right back in that same hole for the second for our increase. Single crochet and then increase in that next stitch. So we get our 1 crochet right back in that same hole, and 2. Then our single, and another increase, 1 and 2. And sometimes I find myself counting out loud when I do this, just to help me keep track of where I'm at in the process. All right, so there's our 1 and 2 for an increase, and a single crochet, and one last increase. 1 and 2. And then you can see we are back to our starting point. All right, so next is the pattern for rounds 4 through 7. We are just single crocheting all around. So you can kind of go on cruise control a little bit. You can see I moved my yarn marker here, and we're just going to single crochet around until we have reached our stopping point. So again, feel free to put me on slow, pause, rewind, anything you want to do. It is not a race. You can go at your own pace. And if you're just learning, don't be too hard on yourself. It takes a little bit of time to pick things up for anybody doing anything new. So be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself. This is supposed to be fun and relaxing, so things don't need to be perfect. Just do the best you can, and if you find your stitches aren't quite looking how you want, that is a-okay. Let's say you messed up and like, oh shoot, I forgot to do the second part of my stitch. So I yarned over, I pulled through, but instead of yarning over again and pulling through for that full stitch, let's say I accidentally just pulled it through without yarning over at all. It's okay. Things are fixable. So let's say you mess up and you want to take some stitches out. You can just take out your hook and pull your tail, and magically your stitches come out. And start again. You'll just want this loop right here. Go ahead, just reinsert your hook there, pick up your yarn again, and just keep going. So again, it may take a little bit of patience and some practice for you to feel comfortable with what you're doing, or feel like you know what you're doing or what's going on, and that's okay. Because let's be honest, a lot of us don't know what's going on most of the time anyway. We just have to kind of go with it. Okay, so something you might be noticing too as we go, now because we're not doing any increasing, we're going to start to see this circle is going to start to curve, and that's kind of what we want to see happen. Not kind of, that is what we want to see happen. And that's going to help make that nice round body of our octopus. All right. Now you can see I have reached the end of that first circle, what is round 4 in this pattern. Now what I do is I leave my little fabric, my little yarn marker, right where it is, so that I can keep track of how many rounds I've done when we're just going around doing these regular single crochets, so that I don't lose track. Oh, are we on round 5? Are we on round 6? So by keeping it in place, that's something that I do to just help me keep track of exactly what round I'm on for this part where we are just doing the same thing for multiple rounds in a row. Okay, and again, you can see we're starting to get that nice, lovely curve of our adorable squishy friend. You can really see that this is starting to curve in as we go. And you might notice sometimes too, when you're going and you're doing your yarning over and you're pulling through, sometimes you might have to wiggle your hook a little bit. Let's say, oh, my hook is getting stuck. It seems like it's snagging. Don't be too afraid to kind of give it a little rotation or a little wiggle, jiggle back and forth to help you make it through those loops, because sometimes it can get snagged on something or catch on something, and that's okay. See, like right there for me, it just did that. There we go. And I should also mention that this pattern itself is pretty forgiving. And what I mean by that is that if you mess up a little bit here and there, you're really not going to be able to tell at the end product. So if I happen to maybe add an extra stitch somewhere or lose a stitch somewhere, it's really not going to show. So again, don't be too worried about things being perfect. Okay, and you can see we've got to our starting place again here with that yarn, and it might be a little bit hard to tell, but to count your rows, I can see I've got, here's round 4 that we had just done. So we've got 4, and then round 5 right above it here. So that's how I know where I'm at. We can count the actual rows or rounds. When we're working in a 3-dimensional shape like this, they're called rounds. If you're working in a flat shape, it's called rows. But whatever step you are on, you can count 1, 2. So round 4 and round 5. So I know that I'm going to be starting round 6. And again, we are still just doing that single crochet. So for each stitch, we are just doing another stitch on top of it. So just remember, again, those stitches have 2 parts essentially for a single crochet. We want our initial yarn over for the 2 loops, yarn over again, and pull through both of those loops. We want to make sure that you're doing both parts. Otherwise, you may be doing something that's called a slip stitch, which we will get to a little bit later on, I believe, in this pattern. But essentially, that is just, you're not quite doing all of the parts of a full stitch. So again, we want to make sure when we insert our hook through a stitch and yarn over, we want to make sure we have 1, 2 loops on before we yarn over and pull through again. So yarn over, pull through, we've got our 2 loops, yarn over, pull through, and that is one stitch. So we've got part one where we yarn over to the 2 loops, and part 2 where we yarn over again and pull through both of those loops, and now only have 1 loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through for 2, yarn over, and 1. Okay. And remember, single crochets. Each stitch is just getting 1 stitch on top of it. And again, you can do this with all sorts of different kinds of yarn. The thicker, fluffy yarn is adorable, but like I said, it does make those stitches a bit hard to see. So for demonstration purposes, just your regular standard yarn is just a little bit easier to see these steps and what I'm doing. Just in terms of doing a video and being able to show you guys what you're looking for. So if you're experienced, you know, this will be a relatively simpler, faster pattern for you. And you'll be able to use maybe that thicker yarn or a fuzzy yarn, because you can, you know what you're looking for in the steps. Even though it's a little bit harder to see the individual stitches or the parts of the individual stitches, if you're experienced and you know what you're looking for, you can still see it. But I wanted this video to be for anybody, so I wanted to be able to show people who may not have much or any experience what they're going to be looking for when making this. And so for that reason, we have just a cute little multicolored ombre yarn here that we're using instead. And that regular thickness just makes it easier to see these individual stitches as we're going, and easier for me to point things out. Okay, and you can see we're coming to the end of our yarn marker here. So let's go ahead and we're going to count those rows. We started in row 4, 5, 6, and round 7, which is where we want to be. I'll do one more stitch here. Alrighty, and so now round 8, our steps are to do a single crochet and then do a decrease stitch, and that's really going to help cinch this body back in to complete the round shape. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to remove my yarn and put it right in the front, and again that'll help us mark that spot. So our first stitch is just that same old single crochet that we've been doing since the beginning. And then the next stitch is a decrease. So to decrease, what we're essentially doing is we are taking these, we're taking 2 stitches and we're turning them into 1 stitch. We are decreasing the amount of stitches total that is making up the round of the octopus. So what we want to do is we've got our 1 hook or our 1 loop on our hook. We'll insert into that next stitch. We'll yarn over and pull through, but instead of yarning over and pulling through like we would for a regular crochet, we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch after the one we just went through, yarn over again, So now we have 3 loops. We've got 1, 2, 3 on our hook. We're then going to yarn over again and pull through all 3 of those loops. Okay, and that combined the 2 stitches from the previous round into the 1 stitch in our current round. And again, we are alternating, so we're going to do 1 regular crochet, and now we're going to do that decrease again. So we start off with our usual 1 loop on the hook, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then insert into the following stitch, yarn over, pull through. We've got those 3 stitches there on our hook. We want to yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches. And regular single crochet and decrease. Insert, yarn over, insert again, yarn over for the 3rd loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Single crochet, and decrease. Insert into that next stitch, yarn over and pull through, insert into the following stitch, yarn over, pull through for 3, yarn over again and pull through all 3 loops. Regular single crochet and our decrease. Single crochet and the decrease. And remember, I told you this is a forgiving pattern. So if you lose your spot, or if you end up with, a stitch or 2 too many, or a stitch or 2 too few, it'll be okay. All right? If you really want to get it just right, don't forget you can stop, you can take things out and redo them. There is nothing wrong with that. All right, so regular stitch, and now our last decrease. Again, we've got 2 loops on, we need that 3rd, so we will insert, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. All right, and we should have 16 stitches again, and if you want to double check, you can count. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and there it is, our last one for 16, and we are right at our yarn marker, so we're great and on track. So this is, if you want, a great time to put in those safety eyes. You can put them wherever you want. You want them between rounds 5 and 6. So if we count our rounds again, we've got round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 5, this is 6. We'll just put them right in those spaces for the stitches of those rounds. And you can place them wherever you want. I'm just following the instructions that the pattern lays out, and it says about 4 or 5 stitches apart. So each of these gaps here is one of our stitches. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. Or if we wanted them a little further apart, I could go over 1 more, but I kind of like it right there. So then you want to take your safety eye backer, this little piece right here, and you want the dome portion you can see it curves out like a dome and then it dips in. You're going to want the curving out portion to be what you're snapping in place. So you want that side to be facing the yarn, and you just push and it snaps right on in. So we've got our other one here. Just gonna go ahead and push, push, push. And these will come off if you really kind of pull at them. So do be careful around small children. There are some that are harder to get off than others. These ones are not that difficult, which on the positive side, if you don't like where you put them, you can take them out and put them in a different spot. But do just be mindful that if you're really kind of pulling at them and trying to get them off, they will come out. Okay, guys, so sorry about that. Took a little bit of a break, but we are about to start our tentacle round. And this is a little confusing, so I am going to make sure to walk you through each step of this process. Now we're going to be working this entire round of tentacles in what is called the front loop only. So if you go ahead and look at your stitches here, you can see that each stitch, each of these little V's, that's a stitch, has a front loop and a back loop. So we're going to just be working in this front loop. So we are going to make sure when we're inserting our hook, we want it to come up in the middle so that it just is that front portion. So the first step of this round is to slip stitch in the front loop of that first stitch. And remember when I said a slip stitch was kind of like half of a regular crochet? Well, that is kind of what that is what we're going to be doing. So to do a slip stitch, you take your hook, and remember this is just in the front loop only. So it's a slip stitch in the front loop. I'm going to insert my hook into just that front part. So you can see I've come up in the middle of that V. I'm going to yarn over and pull through. Now, for a regular crochet, we would yarn over again and pull through both of these loops. For a slip stitch, we're just going to take this loop and pull it right through our first loop, and that is a slip stitch. Now, this part of the pattern, like I said, it can be a little confusing, so we're just going to go through it step by step. So we have slip stitch into our first loop, and now we're going to start our first tentacle. And so the first step for making a tentacle is to chain 4. So to do the chain, and it's going to protrude up. It's not going to be connected just yet. Do the chain, we're going to yarn over and pull through. So you can see we've got our first chain there. Yarn over, pull through for our second chain. Yarn over, pull through for our third, and yarn over and pull through again for that fourth chain. So you can see right here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 chains, and we're going to insert our hook into the second chain from the hook, and we're going to do a single crochet. So right here we have our first chain of the hook. We don't want to insert into that. If we do, it just sort of undoes this loop that we've got already on the hook. It comes out a bit weird. So if you're doing this part and you notice that it doesn't seem to come out right, there's a possibility you're inserting your hook into the first chain and not the second chain. So we've got our first chain here and then our second chain right there. We will insert our hook into that second chain, yarn over, pull through, and we have the 2 loops, 1, 2, yarn over, pull through both loops for that single crochet that we've been doing from the start. And then we're just going to go ahead and do that again. Insert into the next chain, yarn over, pull through, we've got our 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both loops. All right, So then we want to go ahead and slip stitch into the next stitch. So you can see right here, tentacle isn't attached. It is coming from this stitch here that we started our chain from, and we want to go ahead and do a slip stitch in the one after this stitch. So we want to go right here, and we're going to insert our hook, and remember, front loop only. So we're going to come up in the middle of that V, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and then pull through again for that slip stitch. All right, then we're going to go ahead and one more time, we're going to insert our hook into the front loop, yarn over, pull through, and we're going to do one more slip stitch. There we go. So we did a tentacle, we slip stitched into the stitch following it, and then once more into the stitch following that one. And then we're going to start our second tentacle. So we'll chain 4. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll do those 2 single crochet stitches down that chain. So we'll insert into the second chain from the hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both of those loops for that single crochet, insert your hook into that next chain right there, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both of those loops. Okay, so then what we want to do, this next part is going to be a little bit difficult. So remember, this whole section with the tentacles can be a bit tricky. Remember to be kind with yourself. Be patient. It does not have to be perfect. It is okay to not get it right away. If you have to take things out a few times and redo them, that is okay. You're doing a fantastic job. So we want to go ahead now. We want to attach the tentacle just like we did before. So we're going to insert our hook into the stitch following the one that the tentacle is chained to right here. So we want to go into that next stitch, this one right here. And remember, front loop only. So go ahead and get your hook just in that first loop. We're going to yarn over and pull through. But from here on out, we're going to do sort of a combination of slip stitches and decreases. So remember when we were decreasing, we wanted to go and make 2 stitches into 1. So rather than just pulling through like a regular slip stitch, we're going to insert into the next chain, or the next stitch, excuse me, into that front loop only, yarn over and pull through. So we have those 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over again and pull through all 3 of those loops. All right, and remember, it is okay if you have to wiggle your hook a little bit to finesse it through all of these loops that are on your hook. Okay, so now we're going to make another tentacle. You can see, look at our cute little chubby tentacles here. We've got 1 and 2. We want to do another one. We're going to do our chain 4, yarn over, chain 1, chain 2, chain 3, and chain 4. And we'll do those 2 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. So we've got our first chain here, and then this next one over right there is the one we're going to want to be working in. So we'll go ahead, insert into that second chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops, and once more in the following chain. Going to yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. Alrighty, and so again, we'll do that slip stitch sort of decrease cross. Go ahead and insert just into that front loop, yarn over and pull through. We've got our 2 loops. And then in the next stitch, we'll insert the hook again, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over. See, we've got those three loops, 1, 2, 3, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops. There we go. All right, and we'll go ahead and do our next tentacle. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll do those 2 crochets in our second chain. Or starting in the second chain, I should say. There's in that. And then the next chain, we'll do another one. And now it's time for those slip stitches again. So in the stitch after the one that the tentacle is being worked in, go ahead and insert into that front loop, yarn over and pull through for your 2 loops, and in the following stitch, go ahead again, yarn over, pull through. We've got 3 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And you can see we've got 4 tentacles now, halfway there. All right, so again, we're going to chain 4 for that tentacle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do my 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and then we do our slip stitches to connect it to the body of our octopus. Front loop, yarn over, pull through. We've got 2 loops, and in the next stitch we yarn over, or we insert it again, front loop only, yarn over, pull through. We've got 3 loops, so we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. All right, and let's see, time for that chain again. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and those 2 single crochets. And again, guys, if you need to pause, rewind, go in slow motion, that is totally fine. You do not have to keep the same pace, or if you want to speed me up, that's okay too. So connect it to the body with the slip stitch. We yarned over, we went through our front loop, we have 2. Insert again into the front loop, yarn over, pull through, we have 3 loops. All right, and we yarn over and pull through all 3. So we've got, let's see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tentacles. And as I said, this is a very forgiving pattern. So if you find that your spacing is a little bit off, you can skip maybe one of those slip stitch decreases and just do a regular slip stitch between tentacles to help even out spacing, or you can do an extra slip stitch if you have too much space. It's really, if you're just a bit off, no one is going to be able to tell the difference if you do some extra spacing or some smaller spacing on things. Or even if you want to make your tentacles longer. All right, so that was our 7th tentacle. Doing our last one here. 1, chain 2, chain 3, chain 4, and again in the second chain from the hook we'll do our first single crochet, yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, pull through both loops. Next chain, same thing, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and go through both loops. All right, so as you can see now, we just need to attach this with just a regular slip stitch. So we'll insert through that front loop coming up in the middle, yarn over, pull through, and then we're just going to pull that loop right through the one that was already on our hook, excuse me. So we're almost done here, guys. Very last part of the pattern here. Let's see if I can get it on the page. Now we are going to be working in our back loops. So last round we were working in all of those front loops. This round we are going to be doing the back loops that we didn't use in the previous round. So you can kind of see that we have these loops right here, 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 all the way around. Just these unused back loops. We're going to be stitching in those, okay? And again, if you need to undo something or if you feel like you're not doing it right, it is okay to take multiple tries at something. You are not doing a bad job if you don't get it right the first time. So we're going to be doing our decreasing stitches all the way around just in those back loops. And again, it can take a bit of practice to be able to recognize what a back loop is. All of this may look the same to you, and that's okay. If you are just learning, it is okay for it to not look, for you to not be able to quite tell. So right here is a back loop. I'm going to go ahead and just try and, from the top down, insert and catch that on my hook. I'll do my yarn over and pull through. So I've got 2 loops here. Then I want to find my next back loop, and I can see that it is this string right here. So I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook into that single back loop here. And sometimes, again, you may need to wiggle a bit. I'm going to yarn over, pull through, and again, for that decrease, we want those 3 loops on our hook. We're turning the 2 stitches into 1. So we've got 1, 2, 3. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 for that decreasing stitch. And it's going to help us cinch this hole shut. So we want to do our next decrease stitch. We've got our back loop right here. We're going to insert from the top, going from the top of that V down. We're going to yarn over and pull through, and we're going to find our next back loop. So you can see it is right here. I'm going to insert from that top and snag that back loop onto my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through. I have my 3 loops on my hook for my decrease. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And we're going to keep doing that around. Find our back loop, insert your hook through it, yarn over and pull through. And in the next stitch, find your back loop, insert your hook through it, yarn over, and pull through. We've got our 3 loops, so we'll yarn over, pull through all 3 of those. And this might be a little bit easier to see these back loops now that we're not on that bright, bright pink. You can see what I'm talking about. This loop right here, that little stretch of yarn is our back loop. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we insert. We've just got that 1 loop that we're going under. We'll yarn over, go through. We have these 2, on our hook. So we find our next back loop and insert our hook through there, yarn over, pull through. We have our 3 loops on the hook for our decrease. So we yarn over, pull through again. And we're going to keep doing this all the way around. And you can see how our hole is getting smaller and smaller. All right. There's another decreasing stitch right there. Remember, inserting just through that back loop, yarn over, inserting again through the next stitch, yarn over. There are beautiful 3 loops. Yarn over and pull through all 3 of those. All right, and go. We are right back to our beginning with our yarn marker right there. Okay, so this is the point in time when you want to go ahead and get your stuffing, and you're going to want to just push it through the hole as best you can. And you don't need a ton, you know. Don't need your octopus to be super, super heavily stuffed. It can be a little squishy. So just take a couple of small bits and put them through that hole. Boop, 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 and we'll tuck it right in there. Okay. And you can see my hook came off, which is okay. Sometimes that happens when you're stuffing, so I'm just going to find where my loop is right here. Stick my hook right back in and we're good to go. All right, and now we are going to just decrease around again. So I'm going to move my little marker right to the front here. And this is going to be, these are just going to be regular decreasing stitches. We can go through the whole stitch, no front or back loop only. So we're going to go through the whole V. See, we've got both things on our hook. So we yarn over, pull through, and then to the next stitch, insert. We've got both front and back loops. I don't know if you can see that there. We've got both front and back loops. Yarn over, pull through. We've got our 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And you might notice some spaces here where you can see stuffing. That's okay, that happens. It's not anything wrong. Sometimes you can use smaller crochet hooks and that'll help, and sometimes you're just going to get those little gaps, but it's okay. We have beautiful handmade something made with love and time, and it's okay for it to not look like it came out of a factory. That's what makes it special. All right, so again, we're decreasing, inserting all the way through the stitch, yarn over, pull through for those 2 loops, and then insert again into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through. You can see we've got 1, 2, 3. We'll yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches. And I'm going to go ahead, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, insert into your next stitch, yarn over, pull through for those 3 loops, yarn over all, and I'll go through all 3 of your loops right there. And you can see our hole is closed. So the only thing we have left to do is finish and tie off our yarn. So you can see, there we go. I just pulled my yarn, the loop, a little bit extra, so we just have a bigger loop here. I'm just gonna take my scissors, I'm gonna cut that yarn, and what you can do is, we've got our loop, go ahead and just pull that end all the way through, okay? And what I'm going to have you do, it's a nice little way to finish off so that everything blends in nicely, is our last decrease was right here. You can see this stitch right here is our last decrease. we're going to go ahead, we're going to skip the next stitch in the following one, the second one after the stitch you are working in. Go ahead and insert your hook right into that stitch and come up right in the middle and take that tail of your yarn and yarn over with your hook and bring it through that stitch and pull it all the way through. Okay, so now you can see we have our yarn coming out from underneath this separate stitch, and it's connected to this stitch right here. So then what I want you to do is go ahead and get your hook right in the middle of that stitch that the yarn is coming right out of. You can see that. And then go ahead and grab your yarn with that hook and pull through again. And we have a nice little finish off there that blends right in. So then you can just tie yourself a quick little knot. I'm just going to use my hook. If you want, you can use your fingers, or if you have a yarn needle, if that makes it easier for you. I'm just going to tie a quick little knot here to make sure our yarn stays put and doesn't come undone. And then we can just go ahead and tuck this yarn. We can even use our hook to go in through some of these spaces with the stuffing. Grab your yarn and you can kind of tuck it in there, or use the other end of your hook and shove it a bit. Just kind of hide it up in there. There we go. And then you can just trim any extra off that you want. Oh, and remember to take off your little place marker there. Make sure all of our ends are nice and tucked in. There you go. You have yourself a cute little squishy friend. So I hope you all enjoyed. And again, be kind to yourself, be patient. If you are just learning how to do this, it is okay to not get it right away. It's okay to need to take things out and redo it. And however your octopus ends up, it is going to be fantastic and amazing, because you made it and you made something yourself. It is not bought in a store, and so that alone just makes it a special thing. So you should be very proud of yourself for doing this. All right, thank you guys. Bye.